Okay, I think we'll get started. We've got about 41 in at the minute and the number keeps going up, which is great. So welcome everyone to our webinar with Action Tutoring today. So we've invited lots of people along who are with us at Now Teach at very different stages in the process of becoming a teacher. So the purpose of the webinar today is to share a little bit more about how you can get involved in tutoring opportunities. In particular, we're doing this because we know that it's very difficult to get school experience at the minute, and that's something that's very valuable to people that are considering a career in teaching. And so tutoring opportunities can be great for getting experience with teenagers, with the sort of secondary age group, and just kind of getting in the spirit of kind of delivering curriculum and that sort of thing. So I'm shortly going to pass over to Kelly from Action Tutoring, who will run you through what it's all about and how to get involved. And then we've got one of our future Now teachers, Roger Stone, on the line as well, who's going to share a little bit about his experience of tutoring as someone who is going to be starting teaching in September. So we would welcome any questions as the webinar runs. So if you click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, you can pop any questions in there and we'll hopefully answer some of them live. If we don't get round to answering all of them, then we will follow up afterwards, and Kelly's happy to share her contact details if there's anything you want to ask direct as well. Great, I think that's all for now, so I'll pass straight over to Kelly.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you everyone for joining the session today to learn a bit more about Action Tutoring. So the format of the session will be, I'm just going to spend a little while talking about who Action Tutoring is, why we exist as a charity, and then I'll give some more context around what the volunteer tutor opportunity entails and how our programmes are run. So, and then after that, I will be asking our wonderful tutor, Roger, a few questions about his experience volunteering with us so far. And then, as Lindsay said, there'll be time for questions from anyone at the end as well. So to start, Action Tutoring, who exactly are we? We're an education charity, national in England, who supports young people to achieve through volunteer tutoring. So on our programmes, which are run in partnerships with schools, 15 to 20 pupils are selected by teachers to be supported on the Action Tutoring programme by 8 to 10 volunteer tutors. So as a tutor, you'd be working with, on average, 2 pupils. So each tutoring session lasts for an hour to an hour and a half, and they take place weekly for 8 to 10 weeks. And pupils receive support in either English, maths, or both subjects. So a bit about the pupils that we support. So we support disadvantaged primary year 6 pupils and more relevant to you, year 11 secondary pupils in the year of their SATs and GCSEs. This year as well, from autumn term, we also launched our year 7 catch-up programmes to help make up for the education lost last year due to the school closures. So the year 7 catch-up programmes actually use the year 6 primary resources, and the idea is just to kind of patch up any gaps, just to ease their transition into secondary school and to try and make it as smooth as possible. So if you're interested, obviously, in being a teacher, you probably know this already, but pupils in the education system are classed as disadvantaged by the government if they're eligible for free school meals or have been in the last 6 years or meet other exceptions criteria. So the reason that Action Tutoring exists as a charity is because evidence shows that pupils from disadvantaged backgrounds generally face extra challenges in reaching their potential at school and often don't perform as well academically as their non-disadvantaged peers. Okay, so just a bit more around why we do it. I'm just about to show you some data here from 2018 to 19. The reason it's from 2 academic years ago is because, obviously, because of school closures last year, data was all a bit skewed and exams weren't taken, etc. So disadvantaged pupils are less likely to meet expected standards in reading, writing and maths at the end of primary school in their SATs exams. So the data from that year shows us that if you're non-disadvantaged, 67% of pupils in England achieve that expected standard in year 6. compared to just 48% of disadvantaged pupils. So that's something known as the attainment gap or the disadvantage gap. Only 11% of pupils who don't meet national standards at the end of year 6 in their SATs then go on to secure a pass in English and maths at the end of secondary school. So that's why when we started as a charity 8 years ago, we worked with just year 11 GCSE pupils, and that's why our management team kind of made the decision to also offer programs for year 6s as well, just because obviously it's really key to get support in early. So disadvantaged pupils are less likely to achieve a grade 4 in English and maths GCSEs. Grade 4 in English and maths is really key and really vital for being able to progress to further education, training and employment, and really important for social mobility as well. So non-disadvantaged pupils achieving a grade 4, that really important grade 4 in English and maths GCSEs, was 71% of pupils in England that year, compared to just 44% of disadvantaged pupils, so less than 50%. So yeah, that's the reason why we exist. We're part of the efforts to close the attainment gap and just make education fair for everyone. So again, some data from 2018 to 19. We publish an impact report every year that's available on our website, and this is data from our 2018 to 19 impact report. So on the left, you'll see a chart for English and Maths SATs results, and on the right is GCSE results. In the green, you'll see the national disadvantage pass rate for maths and GCSEs, for SATs and GCSEs. And then in the blue, you'll see the pass rate for disadvantaged pupils who received at least 8 sessions of action tutoring support. So we consistently achieve higher than the national disadvantage rate, which just really shows that our tutoring sessions do have a really positive impact. Yeah, we know that small group support, it not only improves like study skills and academic knowledge, but also just helps develop soft skills like confidence, motivation, resilience, just that kind of extra attention from an adult, that sort of safe space to ask questions that they might not feel confident asking in class. So our impact is sort of measured by results, exam results, but we also really emphasize the importance of these soft skills that are really important to develop as well. So the impact of the pandemic, you've probably read about this a lot in the news and media, so I won't dwell too much on this slide, but the impact that the school closures and the pandemic has had on all pupils is really significant, but particularly the disadvantaged pupils that we support. So even before the crisis, disadvantaged pupils were on average behind their non-disadvantaged peers by 18 months by the end of secondary school. And it's now been estimated by the Education Endowment Foundation that this gap has widened to 2.5 years. So proposed interventions to counter the effect of school closures on the disadvantaged gap have included catch-up premiums, tutoring programs, and support for remote learning. So one of the things that was announced last summer was the National Tutoring Programme. So this, if you don't know, was funded as part of the government's £1 billion coronavirus catch-up package. And the purpose of it is to provide additional financial support to help schools help their disadvantaged pupils whose education has been most affected. So excitingly, at the beginning of November, Action Tutoring were approved as one of the providers of this programme. Which has meant that this year has been a huge period of growth for us. Last year, we worked with approximately 100 schools and 2,500 pupils. And this year we have doubled and are working with 200 schools and aiming to reach 5,000 pupils. Which means we need a lot more volunteer tutors. So that is some sort of background on Action Tutoring and why we exist. You can find a lot more information on our website as well, and also in our impact report, which is really interesting reading if you are interested. I'll now talk a little bit more about our programs themselves and how they function, and what the volunteer opportunity entails. So in usual times when schools are open, we offer both in-person opportunities and online opportunities. Tutoring in school is available if you live in London, Bristol, Sussex, Nottingham, Birmingham, Sheffield, Liverpool and Newcastle. But you can be an online tutor from anywhere in England, Wales or Scotland. So at the moment, obviously everything is online. We were running about 50% in school and 50% online in the autumn term. So we're hoping to see a return to that for summer term programmes. Obviously, that's completely dependent on government guidance and whether or not schools are comfortable with having volunteers in, etc. So with in-person programmes, I'll just sort of talk about them briefly in the hope that we do get to resume them in summer. But with in-person tutoring, you work with up to 3 pupils. You commit to the same time each week for a course of 8 to 10 weeks. Like I mentioned before, the sessions are an hour to an hour and a half in length. The sessions that you'll be able to choose from are generally Monday to Friday. We have the occasional Saturday opportunity, but mainly Monday to Friday, either before the school day at about 8 o'clock, during the school day, or after the school day at about 3:30 is the last one. And we have staggered start dates throughout the academic year. So if you do want to apply to be a tutor, you can apply at any point of the year. And we have staggered start dates. The next ones will be after February half term, and then staggered start dates in April and May. And then next academic year would be October and November. Okay, so our online platform is something that we just launched this year. Last year in March, we had to stop all of our programmes for the rest of the year because we were only providing in-school tutoring and obviously schools were closed. So we piloted our online programme over the summer and launched it in autumn, which has just been really exciting. So it means we obviously get to have access to a lot more tutors from a lot more areas, and it also means that we can reach a lot more pupils as well. So currently, during school closures, we've converted as many as possible of our programmes to home-based tutoring, which I'm sure any tutor, including you, maybe Roger, who's experienced it, hasn't come without its challenges for the first few weeks. Obviously, with home-based tutoring comes with tech issues and maybe like troubles logging in. But we're tried to convert as many as possible. And after the first sort of 1 or 2 weeks, which might have been a little bit shaky, it all seems to be settling okay now. So they're going really well. But in usual times when schools are open, the pupils aren't at home, they're all in their classrooms. So all the pupils in the programme are all in an IT suite together. There'll be an action tutoring staff member present in the classroom, as well as a link teacher kind of overseeing the whole programme. So that's what online programmes would normally look like. Tutors work with up to 2 pupils for online programmes. When we piloted the online programmes, that's just how it was most effective. We provide extra training on how to use our online classroom Vedemo. So Vedemo, you can kind of see on the screen there, is the system that we've used for our online classroom. Once you've sort of attended the induction training, you'll then be sent a link to complete in your own time. And it's about 30 minutes to an hour of learning how to use the system. And then you'll also receive a login to the online classroom before you start tutoring as well. So you can spend some time sort of practicing and like familiarizing yourself with the online system if you so wish. The workbooks, which we would usually physically provide for in-school programs, are instead preloaded onto the classroom. And as a tutor, you need access to a desktop or laptop computer, a webcam, and obviously internet access. Okay, so a few reasons why to volunteer with us. The first and most important one, obviously, being to make a difference in helping young people succeed. So by giving up your time for an hour a week or an hour and a half, you'll be making a real tangible difference to the lives of these disadvantaged young people whose education has been worst hit by the pandemic. You can learn transferable skills that you can add to your CV, like communication, working with young people, confidence, resilience, motivation, and organisation. And it also, something, again, which is really kind of especially important in a kind of lockdown context, but volunteering for anyone really develops your well-being and positively affects mental health. It's a chance for you to meet others, feel connected to the community, and just feel fulfilled knowing that you're making using your time to make a positive impact as well. Okay, so a bit around the support that we provide you with throughout your time volunteering with us. Once you've applied online, if successful, you'll be invited to an initial training session, which is held over Zoom and goes over sort of things that I'm talking about in a lot more detail, important things like safeguarding training, and just a lot more detailed information about how the programme works. And you also receive ongoing support from programme coordinators as well. So once you sign up to your programme coordinator would email you like an introduction and all of the workbooks and resources that you need to start tutoring. And they are there either virtually or physically in each session. The DBS check, so if you don't have one already, obviously to work with children, you need a criminal records check. That's something that if you don't have, we will process for you and cover the cost of that as well. Tutor workbooks that are with lesson plans that are carefully tailored to the national curriculum. So like I said, if you're an in-school tutor, you'd have the physical workbook. If you're an online tutor, you have them on your classroom. These are really, really good. And I think, yeah, a really good reason to tutor with us as well. In terms of planning time, I think it's obviously dependent on each volunteer and your confidence with the subject that you're teaching, but it makes it really easy for planning for your sessions. So before each session, I'd probably spend again, this could vary, but I probably spend about 15 to 20 minutes just familiarizing myself with the lesson that I'm going to be teaching. There's like a 10-minute, usually like a little starter activity, then like a main body of the lesson as well, and then like a reflection activity. And you just sort of work through the lessons each week. If you know it's not really strict, like if your tutor, if your pupils are maybe a bit slower, then you can cover one lesson over 2 weeks. Yeah, and it's also just really good for if you're not familiar with the national curriculum, it would be really great just to kind of like familiarize yourself with it through these workbooks as well. In-session support from the programme coordinator, which I've kind of talked over already, but yeah, like I said, in school programmes, they're physically there in the classroom with you, and for online programmes, they're virtually on hand for any kind of questions or tech difficulties. And yeah, we can provide you with a reference for employers or any sort of future volunteering ventures once you've completed a full programme of 8 to 10 weeks. Okay, so just coming to the end of my part now. So in terms of eligibility criteria, generally we look for to have a degree in any subject, to have achieved a B grade or above at A level in the subject that you wish to tutor or related. So if you are looking to be an English tutor, we'd look at essay-based A levels like psychology, history, sociology. For maths, we'd look at like science-based subjects. But I would say if you don't have a degree or you didn't study A levels, we take in consideration all relevant qualifications and skills. If you're on the Now Teach programme or like interested in teaching, it sounds like you'd already kind of have the skills that you would need. So yeah, don't be put off if you didn't take that exact route of A level and university. We look for good communication skills, obviously, and to be a fluent English speaker. And we don't require any previous experience working with children. So on the right there, you'll just see a kind of cycle of the timeline of getting involved. So the first step, if you're interested, would be to apply online. It's a short application form, probably up to about half an hour. And that's on our website, actiontutoring.org.uk. That takes about 2 to 3 days to be assessed by our recruitment team. And if successful, you'll be invited to a 2-hour training session, which is held over Zoom, and we process the DBS check for you. After that, it's kind of a matter of time of waiting for the DBS to come through. At the moment, it's about an average of 10 days. So once that's cleared and we've received a notification, during that time as well, you'll receive if you're an online tutor, you'll receive a link to the further online system training, which you can complete at your own leisure in your own time. And once you've been trained and your DBS is cleared, then at that point you can sign up to a programme. So you receive a list of either in person or online, depending on what you've put your preference as. You'll be able to pick like a subject in the day and time that suits your schedule. And at that point, your programme coordinator will email you the workbooks and the kind of introduction to the programme. And then from then on, you attend the session weekly for 8 to 10 weeks. So that is it in terms of information from me. I think now I'm just going to ask our volunteer Roger a few questions about his experience so far. Sorry, Lindsay.
I might just jump in first if I can, just because we've
Yes.
had a few questions through that might be good to just cover off now before we hand over. Sorry, Roger, to interrupt. So first of all, just to clarify, so you're so it's just tutoring in English and maths, if I'm correct. And it doesn't just to reassure those who are on the line that are looking to teach in a different subject in September, that doesn't matter as long as you fit those criteria that Kelly was just detailing there. So you're welcome to, even if you're going to teach history, have a look at tutoring in English, for example. Great. And then there was just a quick question on, because you mentioned it being quite tricky with the tech and the transition to being at home. There's a question from Karen about how you're finding disadvantaged pupils and the access to tech and connections and doing the online bit there. How has that gone for you?
Yeah, so feedback from the programme team so far is that the first couple of weeks, generally we have actually 2 members of staff kind of launching the programme. So I've supported on a few of them. A lot of the sort of initial teething issues were, you know, we call parents beforehand or carers or older siblings. And we text them to kind of, you know, but sometimes it doesn't go through or they don't receive it. So we've had trouble with pupil attendance for the first few weeks sometimes. Tech has generally been okay, but I'd say, you know, there's been a few problems with maybe mics not working. For safeguarding reasons, everyone needs their videos on, so that's kind of like non-negotiable. We sort of always popping in and out of the rooms, like making sure pupils have their videos, and tutors as well, obviously. But yeah, I guess where the tech at home isn't always as good as the tech at school. There have been a few sort of just issues with that. Yeah, does that kind of cover it? But generally, I'd say after the first, so with the first 1 to 2 weeks, we've had sort of a call for all staff to be on board so that there can definitely be like 2 members of staff like overseeing the sessions. And then generally after 2 weeks of the program coordinator is able to oversee the program by themselves. So it sort of goes a lot smoother. So yeah, I'd say January maybe was the main sort of teething issue period, but hopefully that should all be almost resolved now.
Great, thank you. And the pupils who are on the Action Tutoring programme that are being tutored, how are they selected? Are they put forward by the school based on certain criteria to take part?
That's a really good question and something I should have covered. So yeah, so we ask, the teacher selects them. We ask that they are on the sort of pupil premium register, and the pupils that we ask that they select are the pupils that are working just under the level where they're supposed to be to achieve that level for a GCSE. So they're not the ones that are achieving really low academically, or they're not pupils with sort of special educational needs. They're the pupils that are at risk of not getting that level 4 if they didn't receive the extra support. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then just one more on here. It's about are you tutoring under the guidance of the relevant teacher? So I assume that the pupils are put forward and then Action Tutoring handles it from there, and it's all your curriculum and your resources that are being shared, but obviously you've got lots of people inputting to those resources more broadly. Is that the case?
Exactly, yeah. So our workbooks are created by our training and curriculum manager, who's an ex-teacher, also in conjunction with our education consultants as well. At the beginning of each programme, the pupils set something called a baseline assessment, and from that we produce a gap report. So the gap report is basically like a traffic light report of where the gaps in their knowledge are, and that's sent to the tutor. So with the English curriculum, we advise that they work chronologically through the workbooks because it's about skills building. So we ask that it's done chronologically. And with maths, it's a little bit more flexible. So if there are specific gaps in the gap report, and we try and pair pupils as well as possible as well, so that their gaps and their strengths are similar. And yeah, so if you're a maths tutor, you kind of have more flexibility to sort of go back and forth in the workbook to the lessons that you think are appropriate.
Great, thank you, Kelly. So I'll let Roger go now and speak for a while about his experience, and then we'll come back to any of those other questions that have come through on the chat there. So thank you, Roger.
Great, thank you. So Roger, just a bit of an open-ended question to start with. How would you say your tutoring experience has gone so far with Action Tutoring?
I think it's been very interesting. It's because of COVID, it's been a bit stuttery, because I did one session live face to face. Just getting into these two students I had, and was thinking about how I could, tailor the next session to be better for them and so on. And then unfortunately the program had to stop. So I'm now doing the online tutoring, and we just had our first session there. So again, two different pupils, getting to know them and starting to understand what they really need and how they are reacting and the gaps in their knowledge. So the experience has been good. I mean, the real good thing is you're getting in front of children. And I mean, I'm applying to be a teacher because I want to teach, because I want to make a difference. And I'm sure that applies to nearly everybody, if not everybody, who's listening to this call. And so you actually get a chance to be in front of them. You get a chance to try. You've got these great workbooks you've produced. So you've got lesson plans set out. You've got material. You can just concentrate on the one or two, or well, that's the maximum with online, the one or two people you've got in front of you. What are they struggling with? What are they being able to do? What do they say are their difficulties? How can we try and help them? And use the material you put in place to do that. So, and I've also, it really emphasizes to me that there are gaps, and these disadvantaged children do struggle sometimes with basic concepts. They are not as fluent in numeracy as they should be. And you just feel that the ones I've dealt with, they're in year 7. They're in year 7, but they need basics of some stuff they should have covered in year 6 and 5. They need to be more fluent in that to help them make the most of where they are at now, with an education that's so disruptive. So it's just getting in front of them, being able to talk to them, and the fact you provided people and structure and selected pupils just to do something that I feel I can then contribute to help. That's the experience so far.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Roger. Yeah, that's just such a benefit for these pupils of that attention, because it gives them the chance to go over things that they might have missed it like 2 years ago. I know with pupils I've worked with, I've just sort of had to go back a couple of years and kind of even go off piece of the workbooks but then that benefits them in the long run and helps them sort of catch up with the work that they're doing in class now. Thank you. So obviously no names about the pupils that you're tutoring, but could you just tell me a bit about the pupils that you've worked with so far? And any like kind of challenges or anecdotes?
So the first two, when I was tutoring face to face, very different. One was a girl who's very shy and lacked confidence, and it was a matter during just the bit of the first session we could get on to that of trying to draw her out, trying to build the confidence in some of the basics in maths. And the boy was switched off, hard to get into focus. When he did focus, he had obviously knew how to do most things, made stupid mistakes and didn't have the concentration to get things right. So very different challenges. And it's just frustrating that, was talking to the program coordinator afterwards at how we're going to improve it for the next session, and didn't have the chance to do it. So challenging because of different personalities. I've now got, again, 2 year 7s based in Birmingham, and they both seem, obviously nervous. I would say nervous, obviously, because it's their first session with me they've had, and therefore it's getting to know me as well as getting to know them. Who is this adult they don't know of that's coming, and how am I going to interact with them, as well as they've got to get to grips with the online platform as well. So there's a challenge of that, but we're starting to see things, ask them what they struggle with. And actually they said, they both said algebra, but actually I've got to go back to the basics of what underpins algebra and some of the numerical questions in terms of the reasoning questions and the questions expressed in words, which will help, I think, draw out the skills which will hopefully help them in what they're doing in algebra this year. So yeah, different personalities, different needs, but you're starting to get to know them and to feel how you might be able to help. Early days for me yet.
Yeah, I think that's a general pattern, I think, with my experience so far as well. So I think at the beginning they are just generally a little bit more shy and nervous, obviously because you are a strange adult to them. But yeah, as the weeks develop, they definitely come out of their shell more and sort of gain more confidence. And yeah, I think we also recognise as well that maybe getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning for extra maths or English isn't necessarily their dream come true, but then they do really start to warm to you throughout the programme, and I think really see the benefits from it. So how do you think it might be helpful in preparing you for your teacher training next year? So any particular transferable skills, curriculum?
I think there's so many transferable skills for people who do want to be teachers. For a start, you're actually getting to teach, teach in front of some people, and you've got to try and get the messages across. The great advantage is that you've got a workbook and a session plan. I mean, you have to choose the bits that you want to cover with the children, depending on their needs and that you've identified, or that have been identified to you, and depending on what they ask for. But you can then pull material out. So you can pull material out which has got examples worked for you, which has got instructions as to how to go through and explain things. So that's really, really important. So I think having the workbook as a basis and then learning to work from that and learning to build session plans for that is something we're going to have to be doing for teaching. It's a really good structured way of doing that. It's practice, it's feedback from the children and also from the program coordinators who, pop in online and see what's happening. So I think that's really useful for us. So I think it ticks a lot of boxes for us in terms of that. And, we all want to make a difference, and it's a chance to do something like that and see how we might have to, the things we'll have to learn and improve, especially when there are 30 rather than just 2.
Thanks, Roger. Okay, and just a final question: how do you balance the volunteering with your sort of work life or other commitments that you have going on at the moment?
Well, it's not too bad. I mean, I'm flexible in terms of my routine. That's my personal situation is I'm flexible, and therefore I've got apart from the time of being in the induction and so on, which is not very onerous, a lesson will take me an hour. Plus we have a quarter of an hour debrief afterwards, which is great debrief in a group, which is really useful. And then you talk about the quarter of an hour to get it ready. I might spend more than that because it's a practice I want to get used to in terms of thinking out a lesson plan. What am I trying to explain? How am I going to do it? And how am I going to bring it to life to the students I've got? So, for me, say 2 hours a week, and 1 hour has to be when I'm not on an 8 o'clock slot. I've got a 3 o'clock slot. So I've got the other end of the day where they're thinking probably, haven't we done enough for the day rather than that. But, it fits into my schedule. And then 1 hour I have to find the rest of the week to get ready for it.
I'm actually really glad you mentioned the debrief as well, because that's something that I sort of forgot to mention. But in school programs, obviously there would be the opportunity to hang back and sort of discuss feedback about your session with your program coordinator. But while programs are online, the program coordinators are hosting optional 15-minute debrief on Zoom, which other volunteers from your program can all go to as well. And you can just, as Roger said, kind of debrief feedback, get any sort of advice from your program coordinator. A lot of our program coordinators are ex-teachers, but if you had like specific questions about teaching that you might want to ask someone from Action Tutoring, then if they weren't an ex-teacher themselves, they'd definitely happily put you in contact with someone who has been. So that's another kind of area of support. Well, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to hear about your experience, Roger. Do you have any kind of like last comments before we hand over back to the questions?
No, I would just say to everybody, if you're planning to be a teacher and you've got the time, it does depend on having the time now, but if you've got the time, go and tutor. It would be my advice from my limited experience.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
So much. Thanks, Roger. That was very insightful and really useful for the other future now teachers on the line to hear someone that's in the same position of them as them getting the experience. We have had lots of other questions come through, so I will throw them your way, and Roger, feel free to chip in if there's something that you want to contribute to as well as Kelly. I just wanted to say, because there's a couple of questions about the sort of different subjects and what have you, there are other organisations that are delivering tutoring programmes as well. So if you're particularly set on tutoring in a certain subject, you can go online and have a little look at what other organisations are delivering the National Tutoring Programme. Obviously, we're partnered with Action Tutoring, so we'd love you to get involved with them, but there's lots else going on out there if this doesn't quite fit with your availability or your preferences. Great, so a few questions here, and apologies if you covered any of this while I was looking at questions. Feel free to just recap on it. So Neil would like to know how you handle reluctant to learn pupils. So I think, Roger, you said it took a bit of warming up there. Do you have much of an issue with people being reluctant to learn, Kelly, across the programmes? How does that go?
Yeah, so I would say I'd say we do have sort of available Bright Ideas training as well on sort of behaviour management, but I'd just say it's, I mean, I don't actually have loads of experience tutoring myself, but I would just go to the debrief after the session, make sure you're sort of feeding back to the programme coordinator. It works wonders when the programme coordinator then feeds back to the teacher that they were reluctant to learn, and then the teacher will have a word sort of on our behalf, sorry, and yeah, and I think that sort of works wonders with the pupils as well. I think it's just a matter of just persevering and just constantly asking questions and trying to engage them. Also, with the online programs as well, you can contact if you're having real trouble with a tutor. The program coordinator is always sort of hopping in and out of the virtual classrooms in an anonymous way, just making sure that the pupils are engaged and that there's no tech difficulties and stuff as well. So if it's really noticeable that a pupil's playing up, which I don't really hear really happens much, but they are on hand for to kind of come in as a second adult. And sort of ask the people to kind of conform.
Right, thank you. And a question from Julian. Do you set homework, or is it all done within the sessions themselves?
It's all done within the session, yeah. So we don't set homework, and we ask our teachers not to set homework, just because of the homework that they receive already from school. We don't want to we wouldn't want to like overwhelm them or sort of, you know, put the teachers out of place in case they do our homework and not their classroom's homework. So yeah, no homework.
Great, thank you. And then Suzanne asked what preparation time is required for each student on average. I think you said you take about 15 minutes to prepare for a session because all the resources are sort of laid out there. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, Roger, how long would you say you take to prepare for a secondary maths class? Because I've only got experience tutoring primary, so that takes about 15 minutes.
I'm probably taking more time than I need to. I could do it if I didn't have it, but considering I'm sort of thinking about what I'm going to be doing in the autumn and preparing lesson plans and so on, I'm trying to do it in more depth and think more in detail about it. So I might spend half an hour to an hour.
Okay.
But I don't think that's necessary. I think you could do it in less.
If you had a really busy week and you sort of thought, right, this is the, you know, the maximum time, what would the sort of minimum time you'd say?
15 minutes, especially after you've had the first week or so. You're starting to understand the workbook, where things are in it, and you've read through the session plan is a set format, so you get familiar with it over time.
Yeah, I'd say from my experience, when I've had to like cover a primary session again, so a bit easier, last minute, I've sort of gone in blind and I've been able to work through the workbook. But ideally, obviously, it's much better to familiarise yourself so you're not caught out with, you know, wondering where to find an answer in the text or something.
Right. And a couple of questions about the sort of match of the schools that you're volunteering in. So obviously it is remote at the minute. When it is in schools, do the volunteers have any sort of say over where they might be working? Do they sort of select an area and then a school is allocated, or do you sort of have visibility of the schools themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you, if you live in one of the cities where we work in school, you'll be sent the in-person programs that are available in that city, and you'll be able to see the area of the city, the school name, the postcode, and you select which one you want to sign up to. So it's not, we don't allocate programs or schools to our tutors, you choose.
Great, thank you. And we've got a particular query of someone that's actually got a school lined up for September and wondering if they could tutor, you know, with the pupils in that school. So I guess that would be actually a case of asking the school, or, you know, reversing that question, seeing if they work with a particular provider for the tutoring programme, or get involved with Action Tutoring and see if the school's on the list.
Exactly. We do have on our website, and there's a Where We Work page, and if you pick the city where you live, you'll be able to see a comprehensive list of all the schools that we work in. If the school is on there, then obviously it would just be subject to whether there were places on that programme.
Great, thank you. And do the students only have access to the tutoring for 8 to 10 weeks? Does that ever extend? Do they ever do another sort of session, or how does that work?
So it's we leave that decision entirely to the school and the teachers, but generally we prefer that the pupils who start with us in autumn continue on to the end of spring term. and then just so that they receive the consistent support. But sometimes at the end of autumn term, teachers make the decision that maybe they've caught up and another student would benefit from the programme instead. So sometimes pupils get switched in the holidays, and then in the after Easter, we actually start working with year 10s, who we then hope to continue on with throughout autumn and spring until their GCSEs, and year 5s, who we then hope to continue to work with. So we hope that they receive 3 lots of 8 to 10 weeks, but it's dependent on the school.
Great, thank you. And then on the side of the tutors, do tutors often do more than one programme, or are they open to doing multiple programmes?
Yep, tutors can sign up to as many programmes as they like, but yeah, just the minimum is obviously just one. And also, if you say you signed up to a programme and then wanted to continue on that same programme the next term, you're given the first dibs, I guess is the unprofessional word for it. You're given the first opportunity to carry on that programme. And if you choose that you want to tutor on a different programme, or that you don't want to tutor the next term, then we open it up to other volunteers.
Great, thank you. I'm just scrolling through. We might not have time to answer all of the questions that are coming through. It's great to see that people are really interested, and we'll definitely put them in touch afterwards. Great. We've got someone online who is actually already volunteering with Action Tutoring and says it's been great, excellent. In fact, you give good support and it's very rewarding. And just a quick question from that individual is once we go back to normal, as it's put there, will the online tutoring carry on, or do you think you'll go back to face-to-face?
So I envision that, so in autumn term we had 50% in-school opportunities and 50% online, and that includes the cities where we work as well. So in Sheffield, for example, half of the schools would prefer online tutoring and half of them would prefer in-school. So I would imagine that it would go back to 50-50, and that there would be options for whichever sort of path you'd rather do.
Fantastic. Let's just have a look if there's anything else before we wrap up. A really technical question actually from a couple of people. Does the platform that you use work on a Mac as well as a PC?
Yes, as long as it's a desktop or a laptop computer. So yeah, Mac's fine. The only thing that we have problems with it functioning on is like iPads or tablets.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just a final one to wrap up with. Do you have feedback from the pupils themselves on how they've enjoyed the programme and how it's benefited them? And I'm expecting there might be something on the website that people can have a look at in more detail.
Yeah, so we have pupil testimonials on our website and also in our impact report as well, which I mentioned. So if you just, I can't remember what page it's on the website, but if you Google Action Tutoring Impact Report, it's about a 40-page document, but there is a page on like pupil testimonials as well.
Great, thank you so much. Just to let you know as well, we've just had someone pop up and say starting my application now. So it really has been very, very valuable to have you here. And thank you, Roger, for joining as well. It's been very insightful to hear your experience. Just thank you so much for taking the time today, Kelly, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from lots of future Now teachers very, very soon. I will download those questions that have been asked that haven't been answered and see if there's anything that needs following up on after this, and I'll pass those on to Kelly, and we will perhaps think of any useful links or resources that we can share with you directly as well. But thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Roger.